In this episode, we sit down with Zach Ragland, Affordable Lending Manager at Fannie Mae, to discuss the game-changing potential of manufactured housing and Fannie Mae's initiatives to make quality, affordable housing accessible.
We're really just seeing that there are so many efficiencies with off-site construction in general, and in particular manufactured housing, where we just feel like when you're talking about speed to market, cost savings for developers and for borrowers, and quality homes that can be attainable for, again, those disadvantaged populations, it's really just a no-brainer. Particularly with MH Advantage, it's not like it's necessarily targeting people that would already be looking for manufactured homes. It's targeting people that need a single family home, and it gives them a better price for a equivalent, if not superior product.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Construction Lending Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Ferris with Land Gorilla. I'd like to welcome a very special guest to the podcast today. We have Zach Ragland, Affordable Lending Manager at Fannie Mae. He is a driving force behind Fannie Mae's effort to make quality housing more accessible and affordable. As the execution lead of the Single Family Duty to Serve Manufactured Housing Plan and Affordable Supply Manufactured Housing Initiatives, he brings over 2 decades of experience to the table. Since joining Fannie Mae in 2013, Zach has spearheaded numerous programs aimed at increasing affordable lending options, engaging with the housing market to develop informative financing solutions that meet borrower needs. His expertise spans product development, technology modernization, and strategic planning, all fueled by a deep commitment to affordable housing. Prior to Fannie Mae, Zach honed his skills in management consulting with Booz Allen Hamilton, earning recognition for his innovative approach to business development and operational efficiency and technical program management. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Sean, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for the opportunity to be here, and really excited to share more about Fannie Mae's MH products and programs, and it's an honor to be on the podcast. Thank you for having me.
It's excited to have you here. And so you're, just to kind of get a good start here, single family side of Fannie Mae, and your domain is manufactured housing, everything manufactured housing. Is that right?
That is it. I live it and breathe it every day, pretty much any aspect of it. My team's going to have some type of support there. And, primarily we're engaged with the industry, working with our lender customers, working with manufacturers, working with developers to make sure we're getting the feedback for how our products are supporting the industry, and where there's opportunity to increase flexibility and make sure that we're making manufactured housing happen. So it's something we're really excited about. And like I say, I spend all my days talking about it all the time. And so let me know if I ever need to come up to a higher level, because I start rolling with our acronyms and getting into the nitty gritty. And sometimes you have to have a bit higher level one-on-one view on it. So.
No, this is great. I love getting into the weeds. That's what the podcast is about.
You bet.
Sounds like you get to talk to all the stakeholders, right? Not just, hey, we're talking to seller servicers or lenders, but hey, you're out there talking to developers and manufactured housing companies, the whole gamut.
Absolutely. I mean, it really, it takes a village, and in this case, it's more than just a pun, right? So making sure that we really are trying to identify the pain points, see what we can do. Because in some of our conversations we talked about, it's obviously a very important issue in terms of affordable supply. We want to make sure that there's attainable housing, especially for some of the most disadvantaged markets that are out there. And we truly believe in manufactured housing, having a role and a place within that as a solution. So,
well, why is I heard you say, we're able to serve underserved communities. It provides an affordable step in for housing. Why manufactured housing for Fannie Mae? Why is this an important part of the options that are out there?
Yep. So, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, part of our duty to serve plan. So we have regulatory requirements. But as part of that work, we're really just seeing that there are so many efficiencies with off-site construction in general, and in particular manufactured housing, where we just feel like when you're talking about speed to market, cost savings for developers and for borrowers, and quality homes that can be attainable for, again, those disadvantaged populations, it's really just a no-brainer. As we talked offline, some of the other folks about where other countries are in terms of manufactured and also construction housing. It's really something where we just have a strong belief this is a way that is efficient, is affordable, it is repeatable, and it's really needed at the time right now based on the affordable supply constraints that are facing our country at this time.
But no, that's great. Now, MH Advantage falls underneath your umbrella, right?
Yep.
Probably one of my favorite manufactured housing programs. And if you don't, for our listeners that don't know about it, we're not going to dive into all the specific details about the program. But at the end of the day, if I had to explain it, it's a manufactured house. However, it has a lot more characteristics of a traditional stick-built single-family residence, right? And the comps, probably the biggest, standout is, comps can be stick-built homes, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
How's that program doing?
Sorry, say that again.
How's that program doing?
So MH Advantage, it is still something that it came out in 2018, right? And I feel like it had a good spot and was on the upward trajectory, just like everything else with COVID. I feel like there's still, an opportunity for awareness of it. It really is starting to explode across the country in terms of development. So it's serving a place in subdivisions and in infill opportunities. It is something where in talking with developers, there's still an education gap. So we're trying to make sure that people are aware of it. And I really feel like it's going to be the harbinger that does serve it as an example of how manufactured housing can play a role within, the natural course of housing supply in America, not just for affordable housing. Like homes are not cheap, right? These are meant to look like site-built homes. They have many better offerings than site-built homes in often cases, right? Like if you're looking at an entry-level site-built home versus a similarly priced MH Advantage home, you're going to be blown away when you really see this. And that's where I see the value in MH Advantage. The more builds we can get, the more actual boots on the ground and people that can go see these homes. I think when you actually go visit a home and you see it, you're going to be blown away by it, right? There's a a permeating stigma kind of manufactured housing where people go, oh, it's a mobile home. No, if it's built after 1976, it's not a mobile home, it's a manufactured home. And on top of that, when you talk about MH Advantage, having all the characteristics, like I said, we don't have to list them all out, but it's going to have a low set. You're not going to look at this home and think that this is a box up on a frame. You're going to look at this and think that this is a home. This is a single family home. And I think that the more and more we see these come up across the country, the more people that can actually see them, we're so excited about having demonstration and showcase opportunities. Because I'm telling you, you're blown away when you hear these homes. They are just the high quality build, energy efficient homes. They really are beautiful, and it's something to see where you really do need to see it. Just touring it on a website doesn't really demonstrate it for you. When you get to actually walk it, touch it, see the elevated roofs, the higher roofs, the appliances, the designs the manufacturers are coming out with today, it's truly impressive.
Now you mentioned developers in there, and I'm imagining walking through, and this is something I have not had the benefit of doing, and I'm curious if you've had it. Have you been to a subdivision that's been built out, and hey, here's a bunch of MH Advantage homes that are just sitting in the subdivision? Like, are you seeing that yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just had an opportunity out here, conveniently located next to me out in Maryland. In Hagerstown, Maryland, there's a new subdivision called Kilpatrick Woods. And so that's going to have, almost 250 homes when it's all said and done. And they're just getting started now. They had 8 or so that were sited and available on MLS. This is totally not something that is going to have too many different sales pitches and processes. These are just going to be a subdivision of homes where the developer's taking advantage of the benefits of manufactured housing, where they can get them in there quicker, right? If you think about it, you're not going to have months to years in terms of development time. Once you actually get the horizontal done, they can be in there in weeks to months. So it's something where it's a model where you can get these homes in, get them installed, put all the finishing exterior touches on them, driveways, sidewalks, garages, things like that, and get that home listed on MLS. Yeah, there was a huge push for that out here in Maryland. There's actually some legislation that just came out where now, if it's a single family zone, you can have manufactured housing on that as well. So we're really excited about the opportunities for it.
That is so neat. And we'll try to include some links here in the podcast to what that subdivision looks like. Maybe we could do little Zillow links so people can walk the neighborhood.
Sure.
That's pretty neat. Well, you mentioned legislation right there. How does, MH Advantage, sit with zoning? Is it just straight fit into single family, or is there special hoops people got to jump through to?
I mean, it's still a HUD code home, right? So it's still going to have to be allowed. And zoning is one of the biggest issues that faces manufactured housing right now, right? There's a lot of local issues that are going to come up there where some municipalities, some areas are going to have prohibitive zoning rules there, but there's a lot of push. And again, I think the MH Advantage is something where we're going to be able to provide more options for people to actually see these homes, so that there are opportunities to potentially amend those zoning requirements. But everywhere that, it has to, you have to be in a place where manufactured housing can be titled as real property, right? So like for Fannie Mae's purview, it has to be real property sales. It's not something where we're providing a chattel product, even though, we're certainly cognizant of where that model stands in the market. But as long as you can have the home actually qualify as real property, so the land and the home are titled as real property, as long as there's no zoning prohibitions there, then it is something that we're really strong believers in and strong proponents of. And I'm telling you, there are subdivisions going up all across the country. A lot of them are in development right now or in planning, and so there's still a small horizon. But I really feel like this year is going to be the opportunity where people are going to actually start to see these. You're going to go over to a friend's house, you're going to see it, and hopefully lawmakers are going to do that as well eventually, so it become a more of a streamlined product that has more acceptance in the market.
Oh, that's great. Now, if I'm getting excited about this right now, listening to this podcast, how do I go out and find out, is this a right fit for this particular area? We're making a lot of loans in this area. Is this a good fit? Is there ways for them to determine that, hey, this could be something that we can add to our loan products and would be great for this particular area? Or do they have to just kind of trial it and see, okay, wow, the zoning in this area is not going to meet that? Is there any way to kind of check for market fit?
Yeah, I mean, Fannie Mae does have a titling guide on our financing manufactured housing webpage. So if you just Google Fannie Mae manufactured housing financing, we have a titling guide there that'll show you what what recent titling laws are in your state. So it's going to have a state by state offering there. There's a lot of resources if you are just to look out there on our website again, and just in general, that could say, hey, here's more of a market analysis. We also have a heat map of areas where we feel like it could be opportunistic for the right scenarios. And so I famously always just point people towards our website, but it is extensive and expansive, and we can make sure we include that for the listeners as well. But yeah, I mean, it really is something where I recommend any opportunity you have to really tour these homes, to really see them in person. That's really where I think that the sales pitch happens, in terms of the fact where, like I say, there is that stigma with manufactured housing. I think it vanishes as soon as you walk into one of these homes.
I imagine it's kind of like, you're out buying a new car, and you almost like develop an emotional attachment when you walk through, and you're walking through the home and you're going, this is not a manufactured home. I can see myself living in this. There's kind of some sort of something. It's got to be something special about touring one of those.
It is, and it's like I say, I question why we even have that assumption where you go, oh, this is a manufactured home. It's like, okay, so it was made in an offsite construction facility, right? It was made in a factory by, not like site builders aren't trained builders, but this is going to be a repeatable process where that home is going to be checked every single week as it goes down the production line. It is going to be fit to a T. I don't know about you. I joked around about this last week, but when I try to find a stud in my house, they are not that consistent, right? They are not 16 apart. And, it's something where these homes are constantly in oversight. in a temperature controlled facility, you're going to get a home that hasn't been sitting out. The wood to build that home hasn't been sitting out for 8 months, and you're not going to experience the same weather delays that are part of that, right? It's going to be delivered to that site, ready to go, finished, ready to be installed. It is so efficient. And another thing, talking about driving it to the site. So these homes are on chassis, right? Like in terms of
Yep.
manufacturing, there's a permanent chassis as a part of them, and the foundations are built in a way where they're still permanently affixed, but to accommodate that chassis. Some people, have issue with that, where they go, "Oh, this is driven down the road." And I'm like, man, imagine your home driving down the road. I'm not making it around the first bend. I mean, this home is already, they're supposed to drive 55 miles an hour. Let's say that they probably go faster than that. So your home is already, people talk about, oh, what about weather on these homes? It's been driven down the road going over 55 miles an hour to get to your home site. This is a home that has been built to withstand that transport, and it's a one-time transport. They're only being driven to the site. I think that it gives to the credibility that it's probably, when we say, comps to site built, I mean, I think that it could be even better than site built. I don't see it as a negative that it's built.
No, you're right. It's an objection response, like the way you handled that objection response of, hey, yeah, well, it's driven on the car. It's like, absolutely, it's wind tested up to 75 miles per hour. It could drive down the freeway. How many homes can you say do that? I think that's a huge advantage to this. Yeah, no, that's there's a lot of great things about MH Advantage. And I think the stigma of even calling it manufactured housing is it just really doesn't fit at the end of the day. And I encourage more people to go check them out. You ever get National Home Builders Association or the what's the annual conference every year? I think you guys are going to be on display there. There's going to be some models that are in Vegas.
At the International Builder Show.
International Builder.
There will be manufactured homes there, and we will be present there. I'll be there if anybody wants to get in touch with me. That's certainly a place where we can meet up. Yeah, we are going to be there. We're not going to have a particular booth or anything like that, but we'll be in attendance. But there will be manufacturers there with homes, and obviously we will be, around that area for the majority of the time. And so, yeah, that is a great opportunity to actually see and get a feel for what these homes look like. And I'm telling you, I think you're going to be blown away. I was there last year, and I was talking with a home builder, and I was saying, boy, this is really something special, right? Why aren't you building more of these? And he goes, because I don't know what these are. I've never seen this before. I'm not aware of it, and I really think that that's, I know I keep harping on it, but I think that a lot of the issue with this is simply that people are operating on assumptions and thinking about a home from a yesteryear, like the 1980s, 1990s. They're thinking about it where it's a lesser quality home. I think once you actually see these, and then you compare the efficiencies of offsite construction along with the cost of these homes, you're going to say, boy, this is something where, again, we could get these put in, move through this development, move on to our next in a much quicker timeline.
No, it's at the end of the day, it sounds like there's a big awareness problem, right? Aside from zoning, and education in that area. So you got like zoning, you got, maybe some awareness in the mortgage product itself, but also just the industry as a whole. How do you overcome something like that? Like
I know that. I mean, that's the toughest part of it, right? And again, I've already mentioned it, but I think you build more of it is the biggest way to come to combat that, right? I think that the more you see these in your community, the more you're going to say, this is a beautiful home type. When you see these homes, it's something where you're not settling for this, right? Like particularly with MH Advantage, it's not like it's necessarily targeting people that would already be looking for manufactured homes. It's targeting people that need a single family home, and it gives them a better price for a equivalent, if not superior product.
What else seems to be getting in the way? I think about this program, and I even remember, going back years and them talking about creating it and then launching it.
Sure.
And it seemed like, hey, here's hurdle number one, here's hurdle number two. And as each one of those kind of came down, the program was there. What's the hurdle today preventing this from being, every house being an MH Advantage home? Like, why? Anything else that's out there that, if you could snap your fingers and eliminate this barrier to get this program to, go to the moon, anything sitting there?
Yeah, I mean, like we've already covered, I think the zoning is, there are a lot of zoning requirements where it is explicitly excluded, right? Where it's just simply not allowed. But I think that there's also a lot of opportunity for it where, there's demonstrations of MH Advantage homes being put within city limits, right? And there's Clayton Homes in Atlanta put two homes. They were able to work with the city council and actually put two MH Advantage homes within the city of Atlanta. And these blended seamlessly with the neighborhood, right? Like you're going to start to see that the more that municipalities actually start to look at these homes, I think you're going to start to question, should they just be outright excluded? No, right? And especially when you talk about the way this country is built up, I'm really hopeful that city planners start to take a look at them. And start to really have a sense of like, wow, what could we do with this, right? If we're going to, I'm not advocating for like urban sprawl, but if we were to have more neighborhoods that we could quickly develop that were already, not necessarily downtown, right? Like we're not talking about putting these next to skyscrapers, but if you could have, density alleviation, right, where you're trying to actually put these in, replace existing homes, find new lots for them within city limits. These blend in seamlessly with the neighborhood, and even just starting to plan out what are ways that we could have more access to affordable housing. I mean, when you drive around right now, right, in urban areas, you're still going to have remnants of middle class neighborhoods. If you use that term right now, I know we always talk about the missing middle, but these are actually homes that are being built where if you look at the majority of the country, it's apartments, townhouses, and then it pretty much jumps from there to McMansions, right? And even townhouses are starting to get astronomical. There aren't too many. It's always an aged neighborhood. If you drive around, you start to see split level homes. And I'm not saying that we need more split level homes, but you're not seeing too many new builds of, that middle class housing where it's not a giant home. We certainly, I'm not against it. I'm not advocating that the world should be manufactured, right? It shouldn't just be manufactured homes, but there's an opportunity to provide, again, a neighborhood feel that is able to be put up quickly, efficiently, cost effectively, and really provide an option where you're going to be able to plan, expansion. I feel like around your city. And even if you're out in the suburbs, and especially rural, obviously these are in rural scenarios, but those are more one-off homes. You know what I mean? Those aren't necessarily going to be planned unit developments or anything like that. They're not going to be subdivisions. I would love to see more subdivisions of these being built up. And there's, like I say, there's a ton in the works across the country.
And I'm excited to see more of that, and can't wait to walk a neighborhood, walk through a home, and see how that all starts to come together. Because you kind of have this kind of sequence of events for traditional development, and how the inspections are done. That's the way my mind thinks. So seeing how a whole entire neighborhood, let alone 200 homes come together, that's
Sure.
just mind blowing to me. Now, I'm going to transition the conversation a little bit and
Okay.
talked offline a little bit about community land trusts and how some changes to manufactured housing in that. Why don't you go ahead and kind of lead the conversation into here and tell me a little bit more about what's happening with community land trusts and manufactured housing?
Sure. So, I mean, just at the high level overview, just for the folks that aren't aware of it. So, for a community land trust, they really preserve the long term affordability of homes, where they actually purchase homes in the communities and sell the homes to income eligible borrowers. So, a nonprofit, a federal agency, there's a bunch of criteria that is going to be limited to who can actually be the manager of that community land trust, but they can purchase homes and then have income-based limits where you're going to actually have limits to who can purchase those homes, and they're going to then essentially have a long-term ground lease on the underlying land, but they're still a homeowner. This is still a real property transaction, and it's a way that they can, it's a way that neighborhoods that local municipalities can actually ensure that there is affordable housing available, and make sure that that remains in perpetuity, right? Like it's going to be something where it's a model that we're really excited about. And we actually do have like a list on our website under shared equity where there are approved shared equity providers that are going to be able to help out in that regard in terms of the community of practice as well. And last year in particular, we updated our policy so that manufactured housing could be part of that model, right? And so, one example that we were really excited to participate in on that was out in Detroit. There was a Tomorrow's Housing Innovation Showcase last fall where a neighborhood got together, formed a community land trust, and purchased different lots within their neighborhood. So the neighborhood is the actual manager of that community land trust. They're going to have 7 homes that are going to be, affordable, designated affordable, and will be available for purchase, in perpetuity. They're going to be able to manage that and say, look, there's going to be income limits on the people buying these homes, and there's going to be sales price limits on the homes when you actually do get rid of them, when you do decide to move into a new home and somebody else is going to move in. And that's a way that they're able to help manage that. And one of those homes was an MH Advantage home from Champion Homes. There were lots of really neat ideas. It was a cool innovation showcase, so there are lots of modular examples as well. But it really just shows that, again, city limits, community land trust, manufactured housing, modular, which is another great off-site construction solution. It really does show what the future, what it shows options. And again, we need more showcases like that. We need demonstrations. We need people that are really going to invest in this type to help address affordable housing supply issues.
How do you, that's pretty amazing. Like I'm just trying to picture all of that in my head, and I'm just not doing it justice about what that vision could look like. But how can lenders get more involved? Like what's your advice to those listening to this podcast that, hey, this sounds really interesting to me. I think there may be something here and I want to learn more. Like how can they get more involved with this?
If number one, lenders, the biggest thing is to talk to developers, right? Like start to create those relationships. Again, there's a ton of resources on our website for both community land trust and manufactured housing. But we're trying to, when we were talking offline, we talked about how, we're at the demand side of a supply side problem. Building is really the issue. Lenders, there certainly is a level of awareness where we want to make sure that they're using the training and resources that are available to them, and that they're revisiting their policies, right? Make sure that they're looking at the loan products they offer. For example, single width manufactured housing. Some lenders just choose to not lend on that at all. And we finance single width manufactured housing as long as it's real property and there are some minimum requirements to it just in terms of square footage. That is a conventional financing product. You can have a single width home. And that's something that we really believe in. And we hope that people take the opportunity and lenders take the opportunity to evaluate their portfolios there. Relatedly, late last year in November, we removed a requirement where there were, if single width manufactured housing was located in a planned unit development in a PUD, it had to go through our project eligibility review service, which is another layer of review. And so some lenders said, we don't want to have that extra complexity. We don't want to lend on any single width MH and PUDs, or just MH and PUDs overall. Right? Some of them were just saying, if it's in a PUD, we don't want to have the potential for at a later time a single width manufactured home to be included in that PUD. We removed that requirement. And so now, really hopeful that, again, in terms of infill, in terms of just subdivisions within planned unit developments, that lenders will evaluate their policies and say, hey, is this still applicable? A lot of times policy is just policy. You go, do we lend on that? And they go, no, we don't. But, actually an incentive to revisit that policy and say, maybe we should be looking at single width. Single width is one of the most affordable housing types that there is. Very goals-rich loans, you're going to have a lot of those fall under duty to serve. And additionally, we also Fannie Mae does not tack on, LLPAs are waived now for loans that meet our duty to serve requirements. So here you're going to be providing housing. We're going to be eliminating the LLPAs that are associated with those homes if they meet the duty to serve requirements. It really is an exciting option, especially in this market where rates are supposed to hover over 6% for the remainder of the year. Affordability is still going to be the biggest issue that folks have. Appreciation is probably going to go down a little bit, but I read something the other day that said that home prices have appreciated by 50% since 2020. I mean, if you were on the fence in 2019 and you didn't hop off of it, this is something where, as a home buyer, you could definitely be interested in it and find a potential solution to your housing needs.
Wow, I did back to the single width. I love that term, single width. I must have missed that letter at some point. Completely went by me, because when we started talking about that, I was like, wow, I didn't know you can get financing. Fannie Mae finances single width homes like that. I'm just that's my biggest takeaway out of everything today, is that the single width is now financeable. That's pretty amazing. Well, we keep hearing over and over that you're pretty approachable. Whether it's developers or lenders. Is there if it's fine with you, we're going to include your contact information with this podcast. Just kind of
certainly, right. Yep, you can connect me on LinkedIn. For general questions too, we do have an alias, MH_notices at FannieMae.com. That actually puts the whole team on notice. And so if you do have specific questions there, I recommend reach out to that. Of course, connect with me on LinkedIn and have my contact information there. Happy to always answer more questions. And yeah, I mean, again, I feel like we are, Fannie Mae is certainly ready to support. I feel like our lenders are ready to support. One of the biggest areas of issues that we have is that we got to build. We need more of these homes. The manufacturers are ready to pump them out. We need more building. That's really the issue.
Well, here, and this will be my last question, I promise. When we think about how many homes can be produced, whether it's MH or Vantage or manufactured housing in general, or modular, any kind of factory built housing, let's
Sure.
set that as the box. How many homes per year can actually that machine rev up to? There's got to be some number. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. How much of an impact can factory built housing make in the U.S. like per year? Is there a number that floats around out there?
So yeah, I mean, MH, shipments, they typically want to say hover around 100,000. I'd have to really go. I know that production has increased by like 30% over the last 4 years. It obviously took a dip in 2023, when the crunch started happening. But I mean, again, it all begets upon itself, right? So I mean, I think that right now, most of the manufacturers are very comfortable. There's not egregious backlogs or anything to that effect. Some areas are going to have more manufactured housing occurring than others. So, if you were to place an order to a factory, there could be, a couple months timeline. But, I think that the manufacturers, for the most part, are ready to go, and that they would be ready to provide more housing for the need there, right? I mean, it's something where, and again, when you talk about MH versus site built, you're going to be able to get those homes put in weeks to months after the order is placed and the home is scheduled for delivery. As long as you can get the horizontal done, you're going to have that home delivered there, installed, permanently affixed, have your exterior finishes done. You have to put on, if you want a garage, a porch, sidewalk, etc. And you're going to be able to move those homes. I mean, it's something where it currently accounts for 9% around there of housing in America. We'd really like to see that number increase.
I mean, 9%. I wonder what the average person thinks that number is. That's
yeah, I know, right?
9% almost seems higher to me than what I would have expected. But that's a great starting point, and I can definitely see that moving up. But what an amazing product here, and I think without you, kind of leading this charge, so somebody's got to be there driving it, and you've done a fantastic job, Zach. I just want to thank you for being on the podcast and help educating everybody about what's available out there with MH Advantage and all the fun programs that are out at Fannie Mae. But, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Any last words?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast, first and foremost. And we are also trying to make sure that folks are aware, when we had some of those other releases, we do have a long-term leasehold option that is there now too. So a lot of the people that are already engaged in this industry, I'm really excited for custom home builders, for site builders to get involved in this. We also have an alternative to the chattel market where we have a long-term leasehold product now, where, it presents an alternative to that park model where you would, developers or community owners would still be able to maintain long-term ownership of the land, but they would be able to lease the development as a whole to a HOA or a condo association as long as it's located in a condo or a PUD. We're looking at states where they would recognize that type of property as real property if you were to have a manufactured home in long-term leasehold, if they would recognize that as real property. But we're really excited about that model and hoping to have more work on it. So I just wanted to throw that tag out there because we're really looking for, looking to gain experience and really engage with the industry there as well.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. Well, Zach, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's an absolute pleasure. Look to have you back here in the near future as well.
I'd love to join, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, anytime. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not replace independent professional judgment. Land Gorilla Inc. makes no representations, warranties, or promises for and disclaims any express or implied warranties related to content. Before acting on any information, you should consider the appropriateness of the information as it pertains to your unique business needs.